Glenn approached me in 1979 after going out to one of the festivals and jamming with Bela Fleck and Mark Schatz, who were playing with the aforementioned Jack Tottle in a band with Pat Enright. Glenn got in a jam session with these guys and said that, that Bela and Mark were looking to move on. They had run their course with the Boston area and wanted to get down in where things were happening, and I said, I don't know. He said, they're playing out at the Holiday Inn, Tasty Licks. He says, go out and listen to them. So I did, and the minute that I heard Bela Fleck play a banjo, it was like, I have not heard anything like that before. I had gone through banjo player after banjo player and was working with J.D. Crowe, who was, as traditional banjo player, he's one of the guys that you count on one hand. So, but Bela Fleck, he's a completely different everything. He was making it up and doing very well, writing his own tunes. And Glenn said, these guys want to get in the band business like soon. And I said, oh man, that would, it kind of put me in a rough position of having to leave J.D. And J.D.'s nice guy, Mr. Nice Guy. He said, well, he says, if that's what you want to do, he says, we'll miss you. If that's what you want to do, give it a shot. We only go around once. So I did. I turned in my notice, and next thing you know, we were in the band business and living in Lexington and got a few gigs right there at that same Holiday Inn and festivals as Spectrum, and ended up getting a record deal through Rounder, who, of course, that's who J.D. was with at the time, and Ken Irwin and company, had heard about, they knew about Bela Fleck, of course, because they had already cut, I think, the Tasty Licks album. So they wanted to hear this band, and as soon as they did, it's like, yeah, we'll give you a budget, and you give us an album. We cut one opening roll, it was called, with that configuration. Started getting a bunch of gigs. It lasted up until about 1981, so 2.5 years, something like that. And then Bela got the opportunity to go with Newgrass Revival. Sam had heard him play and said, that's the guy that we need right there. And that pretty much finished off Spectrum. My heart isn't in it anymore, and Mark Schatz says, Bela's moving to Nashville, and I think I'll just move down there and kind of wing it, and, because Mark could play electric and upright bass. He was really an accomplished musician, and he says, I won't find too hard getting work down there. So he moved, and before I could even pick up the phone, basically, and try to piece something back together, the phone rings. And it's Bill Yates. And he said, I understand the word had already gotten back to D.C. that Spectrum was breaking up. And he says, before you start making any moves and recruiting people, he says, I'm going to make you another offer here that you might want to hear. And I said, oh boy. So he said, I'd like you to come back to the Country Gentlemen. The guys, Ken and Rick Allred, I think, was playing mandolin at the time. And all I remember was Kenny something. I can't recall his name. Playing banjo, and they both wanted to leave, or I don't know the circumstances. But anyway, Yates and Charlie were in the market for a banjo player and a mandolin player, tenor singing mandolin player. And he said, you're the first one I thought of. And when I heard that Spectrum was breaking up, we'll offer you the job. You want to get back to D.C.? He says, yeah, but it'll be different this time. It'll be a salaried position. We'll offer you, and it was more money than I was making, and it was guaranteed every week, whether I worked or not. You know, it was I was on the payroll. I discussed it with my wife, and she says, "Yeah, I wouldn't mind getting back to D.C. You know, why not? Sounds like a good gig to me." The only problem that I had, and I told Bill Yates, I said, "Well, who you got in mind for a banjo player?" He says, "Well, we got several in mind," and he started going down through a list of people, and I said, "Have you ever thought of Dick Smith?" And he said, "Didn't he used to work with you in the country store or whatever you were called back then?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "He's working with Del McCurry now, and if you're offering the same kind of a position type thing, you know, salaried employee, he might be interested." And he said, He said, I'll find out. And so I got him in touch with Dick, and Dick was ready. You know, Dick said, You know, he had gone, I guess, about as far as he wanted to with Del, and liked the country gentleman music for sure. So he wanted to be part of that band, and he joined up. So that was my second stint with the country gentleman.